The gates of Eden's estate, had they always been this tall? Groaned open as the SUV approached, then swung shut behind them with a heavy, final clack of iron that vibrated through Willow's bones. The familiar driveway stretched before her like a foreign country. The estate swam before her eyes, familiar landmarks rendered alien in her shock. Had the foyer always been this vast? The grandfather clock's ticking hammered against her eardrums, each second stretching impossibly long. Eden's hand burned against the small of her back as he guided her not towards the staff wing where she belonged, but up the grand staircase she'd only ever gawked at. Her feet moved without her permission, floating across marble towards the forbidden east wing where the cliffs dropped away into nothing. In here, he murmured. When he pushed open a set of double doors, Willow blinked at the assault of luxury. Pale silks billowed from a canopied bed. Cream velvets draped across furniture. Candles casting dancing shadows across unfamiliar walls. A fire crackled in a marble hearth, its warmth failing to touch the ice spreading through her chest. Floor-to-ceiling glass doors opened to the view of the cliffs in crashing waves. She stepped in. The carpet beneath her feet felt impossibly plush, swallowing her steps as if erasing her presence. What's going on? Her voice sounding small and fragile in the vast room. She clutched her arm across her chest, feeling the phantom pressure of the bruises on her neck. "It's yours," Eden replied. He walked over to a sideboard and poured 2 glasses of dark amber liquid. "You've spent your whole life caring for others in squalor, Willow. Now it is my turn to take care of you. You are the center of this home, its heart." He handed her a glass. She took it with hesitant hands, but she didn't drink. The way he was looking at her, with a reverence that felt like a weight, made her feel like an object on a pedestal. "I should check on your father," she said, desperate for the familiar routine of her job. "He needs his evening. My father passed away an hour ago, Willow." The glass nearly slipped from her fingers. "What?" "But I was just here this morning. He was stable." Eden stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers on the silk-covered walls. "The heart is a fickle thing." He went peacefully. "But you see, that creates a problem, doesn't it? Your employment is technically over." Willow's breath hitched. She looked towards the door, a sudden, sharp instinct of survival screaming in her mind. "Then I should go. I'll find a hotel, No!" The word wasn't shouted, but it was absolute. Eden set his glass down and moved towards her. Willow's breath caught as his fingers found their way into her hair, moving the strands in front of her shoulders with deliberate slowness that made her scalp tingle. Her blonde hair framed her face like a curtain, a flimsy, useless shield. When his fingers combed through the strands, each point of contact burned like ice against her skin, marking territory she hadn't agreed to surrender. "You're waking up from your shock, but you don't understand, Willow. I didn't bring you here to be a nurse. I brought you here to be mine. I've watched you for months. I've seen the way you breathe when you think no one is looking. Deep exhales of exhaustion. I've seen the kindness you wasted on a dying man and a pathetic drunk." He leaned in, his lips brushing against her ear, sending a cold shiver down her spine. "You aren't leaving this house. Not tomorrow. Not next month. I've wiped away your past. Mark is gone. My father is gone. There's only me, this room, and the life I am going to build for you. You will never have to worry about the world again, because the world no longer exists for you." He stepped back and reached into his pocket, pulling out a heavy brass key. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Eden." He walked to the door, stepped out into the hallway, and looked back at her with a smile that was both beautiful and utterly vacant of mercy. "Sleep well, Willow. We have a lifetime to get to know one another." The heavy oak doors swung shut. Then the sound that would haunt her dreams for the rest of her life, the sharp metallic clack of the bolt sliding home from the outside. The sound of the lock was a gunshot in the silence of the room. Willow lunged for the door. She grabbed the ornate brass handles and pulled, then pushed, then threw her entire weight against the door. "Mr. Eden, open the door!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "This isn't funny. You can't do this." She hammered her fist against the oak until blood smeared the polished wood. Sinking to her knees, she pressed her ears against the door, straining to catch the whisper of his returning footsteps, the sound of a key sliding back into the lock, his voice confessing it was all some kind of cruel joke. Instead, only silence stretched beyond, a silence so complete it seemed to swallow even the memory of sound. Then, cutting through it, the ocean crashing against the tide outside her window, and the grandfather clock's pendulum below, each tick-tock like a chisel carving away seconds of her former life, measuring her descent into this gilded prison cell. She moved to the glass door that dominated the far wall, framing the night-black cliffs and silver-tipped waves that crashed against the rocks below. A breathtaking vista that felt more like a painting of freedom than an actual escape route. Willow gripped the balcony railing and looked down. The sheer drop made her stomach lurch. Jagged black teeth of rock waited 300 feet below, where hungry waves foamed white against their edges, then retracted, only to surge forward again in an endless, patient rhythm. She stepped backwards into the room, her head spinning from not just the vertigo of the cliff drop, but from the sudden, suffocating reality closing in around her. The silk wallpaper seemed to pulse with a racing heartbeat. Mark will have called the cops by now, she thought, fingers trembling as they brushed against her bruised throat. He would tell them everything. How a stranger invaded their apartment, how Eden's knuckles had connected with his jaw, the sound like a melon splitting. Kidnapped. The word floated in her mind like a corpse on water. She froze, the plush carpet suddenly feeling like quicksand beneath her feet. Is that what's happening? Am I being kidnapped in a room worth more than my annual salary? Her gaze caught on the smeared crimson handprints marking the door like primitive cave paintings. I walked right into my own abduction, she whispered, her voice a ghost in the room. She paced, each step leaving indentations in the carpet that disappeared behind her, as if even the room was erasing her presence. Mark will call. He'll call, she muttered, her thoughts a desperate litany. He'll save me. He'll come for me. He has to. But another voice, colder and more insistent, whispered, "Unless he thinks I wanted this. Unless he's nursing his wounds and his pride, believing I finally chose the rich man's son over him." The memory of Mark's jealous eyes whenever Eden's name was mentioned sliced through her. Unless he thinks the boss's son finally rescued his girlfriend from the big bad wolf. The thought was a stone in her stomach. She raked her fingers through her hair, feeling strands catch and tear. Then work. Her mind clutched at this new lifeline. Yes, work. Surely my job will learn that Mr. Thorne has passed, and when I don't return from the hospital shift, they'll have to check on the Thorne estate. Won't they? Wouldn't they? She hugged herself tightly, fingerprints digging half moons into her arms. Just wait. Just wait. Stay calm. Stay alive. Someone will notice I'm gone. She hadn't stayed calm. An hour passed, then 2. Her throat was scorched from screaming, and her muscles ached with a deep primal exhaustion. She slumped to the floor, the coldness from the cliff view of the master suite finally seeping through her nurse's uniform. Think, Willow, think. She forced herself to stand, her eyes darting around the room. She was a nurse. She was trained to be observant. There were other windows, not facing the cliffs. She went to them. They were beautiful arched structures of heavy glass, but when she tried to lift the sash, it wouldn't budge. She looked closer and felt a cold pit form in her stomach. The frames had been discreetly bolted into the stone with steel brackets. Even if she broke the glass, the decorative iron scrollwork on the outside, which she had once thought was charming, was actually a set of reinforced bars. She turned back to the room, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She began to strip the bed, looking for a tool, something to pick the lock or pry a hinge. That's when she saw it. A flash of red caught her eye. Something that didn't belong among the ornate plasterwork where the ceiling met the wall. A pinprick of crimson, steady and unblinking, aimed directly at the bed. Her breath caught in her throat as recognition dawned. A camera lens. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she pivoted, scanning the room with new awareness. There, inside the antique brass lantern by the fireplace, another red eye watched. And there, behind the gilt frame holding a portrait of a Victorian girl whose hollow eyes unsettled her, now watching with the same soulless vigilance as their owner. She wasn't just in a room. She was in a laboratory. Willow backed away, her hands trembling against her lips. The hair at her nape prickled, as if someone had just exhaled against her skin. Her gaze locked with the camera's unblinking red eye. Is he watching right now? The realization hit her stomach like ice water. Those times she felt observed while bathing Mr. Thorne, the sensation of being studied when she bent to change IV bags. Had that been Eden all along? Categorizing her movements, learning her routines? Was he the eyes all along? She imagined him now, bathed in the blue glow of monitors, leaning forward in his chair as her terror played out in high definition. His fingers might be steepled beneath his chin. His lips curved into that same beautiful, merciless smile as he watched her transformation from caregiver to specimen. She felt the urge to hide, but where? The room was open, elegant, and completely exposed. She crawled under the heavy mahogany bed, pulling the duvet down to create a small, dark sanctuary. She curled into a ball as she realized the true depth of the nightmare. He hadn't just taken her freedom. He had taken her privacy, her dignity, and her very shadow.